With more reaction, we welcome in our friends and colleagues, Todd Lewis and Rex Hoggard. Todd, you can understand. I'm going to start with the president, Rex Hoggard here. Rex, the battle for Rory on Sunday was as much Rory versus Rory as it was Rory versus the field. In all the majors that you've covered, can you draw on a comparable story to what we saw unfold at Augusta National?
George, I don't think there is a comp. Not to what we saw Sunday, not to what we've seen over the last 10 years with Rory McIlroy. I think that's what makes this so special. And for him to do it in signature Rory style, I think is almost apropos. I'm sure he would have loved to have had a four-stroke lead at the turn, which he did, and to carry that all the way through. That didn't work out. It clearly turned out to be a much more difficult task for him. But in the quiet moments following what happened on Sunday, I bet he thinks to himself, yep, that's exactly how it should have happened. That's what the last 10 years have meant, trying to get the career Grand Slam, trying to win another major, trying to win the green jacket for the first time. There is no comp to that because I think this is such a unique situation. There's only been 5 other players who've completed the career Grand Slam, and I don't think any of them went through it like Rory did because they all got to that last leg of the career Grand Slam within 3 years. None of them really had to suffer and endure for an entire decade.
Todd, just a top shelf interview with Rory, riveting stuff to listen to, playing it on the show here, and a lot was taken away from it. But Todd, I want to focus in on, just how big of this burden was on Rory, this majors drought, but also this Masters drought?
It was very heavy. There is no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, I echo what Rex was saying. I can't remember a tournament, especially a big one like that, a major championship, specifically the Masters, where I've seen a player struggle so hard to win. As a matter of fact, when Rory had that unfortunate bogey on the 72nd hole, myself, my producer, Andrew Bradley, our director of player relations, we all got together, and Courtney Holt and I, and we just said, we need to put ourselves in position to make sure we get video of Rory leaving Augusta National, because this is going to be such a massive disappointment if he loses, that just like he did at Pinehurst, he is going to leave and not talk to the media. So we have to have ourselves positioned in the right places with our cameras. That's how emotional and heavy it was. I will say this though, and this is what I digested. Bryson DeChambeau was not playing well. And when Rory McIlroy came to the 10th tee, he had a 4-shot lead. Now, if Bryson was tied with Rory McIlroy, or if they were separated by 1 shot, I think you would have seen a different Rory McIlroy on that second 9. But because he had a large 4-shot lead with 9 holes to go, Rory was facing his biggest nemesis, and that is Augusta National. And so instead of trying to play to win, if Rory was up in his kitchen trying to get the victory and take it away from him, Rory had to play against himself, and he was trying not to lose. And that's what we saw down the stretch, but ultimately he was able to overcome that.
And Todd, we just had Padraig Harrington on. That was the exact thing that he said. Rory is not comfortable playing defensive. So when Rory is aggressive, it's the best version of Rory McIlroy, like we saw that stretch from, call it 3 to 10 when he went 4 under, took that 4-shot lead. The worst version of Rory McIlroy is on 13 when he's trying to play conservative defensive, hits the poor wedge shot, makes double, then he's on the back foot. It was just wild seeing the pendulum swing so quickly back and forth to jaw-dropping wedge shot in the water on 13 to one of the best shots we've ever seen on 15. Rex, as you write this story now with where Rory is in his career arc, is he clearly the best player of his generation post-Tiger, and where does he stack up among Europeans?
His generation, full stop. Yes, he is the best player of his generation. I clearly do not count Tiger Woods being of Rory McIlroy's generation. I don't even think there's a conversation anymore. I'm fascinated by the idea that Rory achieved something on Sunday that I don't want to say it's the end of the road, but everything that comes after this, another major, another Masters, a FedEx Cup, a Player of the Year, it's just another line on a resume. His resume is completed. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. As far as what comes next, I've heard this a lot over the last 12 hours since he won, and I tend to agree with the idea. This can only open the floodgates. This can only lead him to bigger and better things because he doesn't have the weight of not having won a major for a decade and the career Grand Slam and the green jacket. That has to be such a relief for him.
Todd, when you look at the dominance of Scottie Scheffler, who entering this one, a lot of the conversation was about, would this be the third time he slips on that jacket in 4 years? And Todd, it clearly became about Rory. He'll be the story for a long time moving forward, post this win in Augusta, capping off the career slam. But how much was Scottie's run? In any way, did that have an impact possibly on Rory and what he was able to achieve on Sunday?
Look, Rory McIlroy can thank a lot of people in the fact that he now has the career Grand Slam on his resume. He can thank his swing coach, Michael Bannon, who's been with him since he was a kid in Northern Ireland. He can thank his putting coach, Brad Faxon. He can thank his sports psychologist, Bob Rotella. But he can also thank Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler winning 9 times worldwide, winning the Players, winning the FedEx Cup, winning the gold medal in the Olympics, winning the Masters, really forced Rory to look at himself in the mirror and say, why am I not playing like Scottie Scheffler? To Rex's point, I am the greatest player of this generation consistently. Why am I following this guy? I mean, look, and he respects the heck out of Scottie Scheffler. So he went late last year into a studio, corrected the deficiencies with his swing, basically by himself. He studied how Scottie Scheffler approached golf, not being results-oriented, but staying in the process, and it deeply respects Scottie's attitude, tried to mimic that, put himself in a better position off the golf course, tried to alleviate the external and internal pressure on himself. It worked immediately. His first start at Pebble Beach on the PGA Tour in 2025, followed up with the Players. That's the best I've seen Rory McIlroy, both on and off the golf course, entering the Masters this year. And a lot of credit goes to Scottie Scheffler pushing him to become a better player.
Rex, your cohort and VP, Ryan Labner, on the pod was queuing up the Super Slam hype, considering that Rory's already won the Players and the Masters. Projecting going forward, 2014's Rory's career year, he had 4 wins worldwide, BMW PGA, 2 majors, a WGC. Do you think Rory could potentially push past that in 2025?
Well, first off, no one could ever accuse our colleague, Ryan Ladner, of being a prisoner of the moment. He's real quick to move on to whatever the next big thing is, and that one surprised me a little bit. I like the conversation about suddenly he struggled for an entire decade to reach the career Grand Slam, but somehow in 2025 he's going to pull off the unthinkable and win the single-season Grand Slam. I will say yes. I don't know how that's not the answer. When you look at the next PGA Championships at Quail Hollow, where he's won multiple times. He has the course record. We all know his game is tailor-made for U.S. Open venues, and we expect a true U.S. Open venue this year. I guess the outlier for me will be the Open Championship this year because it returns to Royal Portrush. We know what it would mean to him to win the Open Championship in his country in Northern Ireland. I think that comes with a level of pressure. But if we're having this conversation 10 years from now, I'm going to be stunned if we're still talking about him just having that many majors, that he hasn't added to his portfolio since then, because the only thing I can imagine Sunday did was free him up.
You would certainly think so. Guys, great job last week on Live from the Masters. It was fun watching from Augusta National, and hopefully you get a little time off after golf today.
Rex, aren't we working Hilton Head?
Yes, we are.
All right, take care.
Yeah, no rest for the wicked then, all right? We'll see you guys later this week.
All right, you got it.
That's what happens when you have a 24/7, 365 golf network. No off weeks. Rory McIlroy, how good is this? Back at Skinner's Bakery in Hollywood, County Down, Ireland, his face painted on the sugar cookies to celebrate his Masters victory. You know they're going to be having some cookies, maybe a few pints to soak it all up. They're man.
I'll take a dozen of both.